what's happening everyone? Pragmatic Addict here. So, I didn't know too much of what to expect with this one. I saw the trailers a few times, and I just couldn't really tell what kind of genre it was going for. It felt, I guess, feeling-wise and genre-bending-wise, like it was taking a little bit of inspiration from something like The Menu, with this film centering on rich douchebags, a private island, blends of comedy and horror, and regular normal-ass people that get involved with whatever this film's business is and have absolutely no business being there. This is also Channing Tatum's first descent into the horror genre, which, you know what, I'm gonna scrap all this actually. This is not a horror film. If there's anything in this film that is horror, it is some gore. It is some gnarly kills. There's a little bit of a mystery to it. But this is also Channing Tatum's partner and actress Zoe Kravitz's directorial debut. So this film's premise reads, when tech billionaire Slater King meets cocktail waitress Frida at his fundraising gala, he invites her to join him and his friends for a dream vacation on his private island. Wild nights soon blend into sun-soaked days, but when strange things start to happen, Frida must uncover the truth if she hopes to make it out alive. What I'll say is that the second that this film starts, it starts in a pretty heavy way. Not just the film itself, but actually before the film starts, we get a little trigger warning that this film centers on themes of abuse of power as well as sexual violence. So right there, not really knowing anything about this film, as well as the way that it does in fact open up as a film, this film just feels like it is 100% that scenario from the get-go where you're like, okay, I see exactly what's going on here. I see exactly where things are gonna go. For example, there's an interview right from the get-go with Channing Tatum's character being outed for abuse of power in his field. So we see these two friends, these two women that are catering this big rich event. And this just feels like how every horror movie is gonna go down as far as themes. You know, how it starts. First off, yeah, this canceled millionaire hosting this event, of course he is going to be the one that takes a liking to these ordinary women. It gives you that oh, of course, sense right away where you're like, well, he probably knows that they're ordinary women. He's probably singling them out. He's probably pulled this type of thing many times. Which I will say, and this is interesting, the play out of the interview, just how easily dismissed Channing Tatum's character is, and just not a big deal it's really made out to be, as well as how quickly and easily these women get involved with everything with this character and the events that do play out. It was interesting because half of me was like, okay, I'm not buying how easy everything is. I'm not buying that this millionaire who's getting outed for this stuff is just so easily dismissed and just kind of forgiven. I'm not buying how just in a flash, these women are at this event, meet this guy, and he's able to take them back to his private island. As a movie, and what you would hope for, I didn't buy it. But this is the interesting thing, is that I also had that feeling of well, sadly, that's kind of how it is. A guy who's a multimillionaire or whatever, he's probably going to be fine regardless of whatever allegations. And on the same coin, two ordinary women meeting a multimillionaire that invites him back to his private island who's hosting this huge event. Yeah, I mean, obviously I've never been in that scenario. I can imagine how quick things go with, drinks and persuasion. Again, like I said earlier, you feel early on immediately that this is that kind of setup and transition and pace of a, horror film or just story of this kind of outcome. You do theorize that, yeah, these are probably just the next two victims of whatever is about to happen. So you don't really dismiss any of it. It just feels realistic in that unfortunately very simplistic way as far as, these themes of this movie. Which now I will say, being marketed as an original thriller, a mystery in that regard, it wasn't really doing too much or anything special or intriguing for me. Not like The Menu where it had twists and it had turns and it had reveals and it had just kind of bombshells. It wasn't really like that. Because again, from the trailers and just from what I read, you really don't know what genre this is. And even while watching the movie, I just really, throughout the whole movie, I just really couldn't figure out fully what it was trying to say, what it was trying to be, how it was trying to make the audience overall feel. Which personally, I am just gonna say, this movie feels like it's trying a bit too much at times. It feels like it's taking too much inspiration at first from a handful of these kind of movies, these kind of like unhinged getaway genre bending films, whether it be something like The Menu or Midsummer or Saltburn. This film felt a lot like that atmospherically, but it doesn't really do anything to make itself stand out as the original film that this was being marketed as. And I was just kind of sitting there throughout the whole movie, just kind of waiting for this movie to really sell me. But there is an interesting scene that I want to get into, that I want to discuss. There is a scene where our main character, she says abruptly, she goes, "I just kind of have a feeling that something bad is gonna happen." And she says that while she's lying in grass. I can't remember if she's like on a drug of some sort, but I really liked that scene because I had a sense where I was like, well, wait a minute. Maybe it's the film's intention to come off very bare and simplistic and not really do much, and then just have this thing happen where this girl's like, I have a feeling something bad's gonna happen, and then something just happens. That's kind of what I was expecting. That's kind of what I was hoping for. I was more so just willing to hear it out. I wasn't really engaged yet. Again, I was waiting for this movie to really, sell itself to me. But here's another thing that kind of like rubbed me the wrong way, which is also kind of in a similar sense, where the main character's friend, she starts panicking abruptly as well. She's like, don't you feel like something's off here? Don't you feel like we shouldn't be here? I want to go home. But it didn't do anything for me, because here's the difference, is that when the main character abruptly just goes, I feel like something bad's gonna happen, that's not based off of something that's happened. That's just a feeling that just kind of settled itself in, which I kind of understood. I'm like, yeah, this is all fine and good. It's a beautiful place. It's a rich place. You got all these drugs and these girls and these men, whatever. But I can understand that with all this at once, all this perfect bullshit, all this luxury, whatever it is, whatever you want to call it, I can see that just kind of coming down from whatever high, where you're just like, I shouldn't be here. I get that, but with this other girl just kind of panicking, saying, don't you see, like, what's wrong here? Like, I want to go home, just kind of, like, on a whim, just coming with that much force. I was just kind of like, well, no, I don't see what's going on here. All I've seen is people taking drugs and people being stupid, acting like frat boys and frat girls. I will say, though, there is a shift, tonally and just, like, story-wise, where things kind of get going, where I'll say that someone goes missing. And when that happens, it also plays in that realistic way, based off of, like, if you were to put yourself in this situation, in this scenario where the drugs have kind of come off, you've been on this island long enough, you've been just kind of, like, absorbed in this bullshit and this nothingness and this luxury for so long that what you actually came here with, or who you came here with, or what you came here as, like just as a person or whatever, that's kind of fled. So when something like this happens and everything, again, like the high kind of comes off, you see a sense of personality and a sense of like humanity that as like this situation and as this person, not the person who has gone missing, but the person that has been made aware of it and how, it was a really solid shift as far as, like, the kind of film that I wanted this to be. This mystery, this genre bending, slowly unraveling, where the first half of this movie, it seems like nothing, and then you look back on it and you're like, okay, when did everything happen during this point? Was it during this point? So it makes you kind of want to look back at the film up to this point in those regards, which I did find pretty fun. And I think it's a no-brainer to say that, this is when shit starts to get going. This is when the movie's real plot, real like selling point, real kind of like messaging goal kind of gets going. And I will say, like, going forth from the important themes once they have been addressed, the movie aside, it just feels a bit disjointed. It doesn't really feel like it knows when or how much to touch on something when it does. Like, it kind of feels like, aside from the important topics, like the stuff that this film really felt like it should address, the film was just trying to sell so much, and ironically was trying to do it very vaguely while also battling with what genre it wanted to be, that it just feels really fucking messy and frustrating to get through. And again, like, beside this one aspect of the movie, this portion where it kind of like sets things in motion, after that has passed and the themes, like those warnings, have passed as well, once I saw where the plot was really seeming to go and what the movie itself as a movie, just as a fictional story, aside from these things, like, once I saw what that was in plain sight, I just didn't really find myself that invested. I had more of a feeling of, like, again, I'm willing to hear it out. And I just wasn't really here for it as a film. And especially by the end, I just struggled with what, again, the film was really fully trying to say, be, or make the audience feel, and a lot of things I just didn't agree with. Actually, I would go as far as to say that the whole ending of this movie, I just didn't really buy at all. I had more of a feeling of I'm willing to hear the film out, but I just wasn't really here for it as a film. And overall, personally, I am going to give Blink Twice a low mixed review. Yes, guys, that is going to do it for my thoughts on Blink Twice. Let me know what you guys thought about the review down below. And thank you guys, as always, for watching, and I will see you in the next one soon. Take care.